The sky above the ruined city of Tharsis Ridge was the color of ash, shot through with lightning from the orbital scramblers that still buzzed overhead. Smoke drifted in long, lazy spirals from collapsed buildings, and the only sounds were the crackling of distant fires, the occasional snap of power couplings discharging, and the low, vibrating hum of the Xaleth line advancing. Kellan Grady lay on his side in a shallow crater, half buried under broken ferrocrete and shattered glass. His left arm was twisted beneath him, and the blood soaking through his combat vest told him the shrapnel lodged near his ribs had hit something it shouldn't have. Breathing was hard, every inhale scraped like gravel in his chest, and his helmet's comms were fried. He couldn't call for evac. Not that there was anyone left to answer. Footsteps crunched nearby, not human. Kellan pressed his cheek against the dirt and tried to stay still, ignoring the pain radiating from his side. His rifle was a meter out of reach, useless now. He could see it just beyond a broken pipe, its barrel bent, power cell cracked and leaking. The footsteps stopped. A shadow passed over him. Then a voice, mechanical but not synthetic. Real vocal cords filtered through a translator. He is alive. This one still breathes. Another voice, lower, more guttural. Then finish it. No more delays. Kellan felt the cold nudge of metal against his back, probably a plasma pike. The Xaleth didn't waste bullets on downed enemies. They liked clean kills, efficient ones. He coughed, and it hurt more than it should have. Go ahead, Kellan muttered, voice barely a rasp, but you should know. The pike paused. Kellan shifted slightly, enough to tilt his head up, revealing a bloodied face smeared with soot and dirt. His eyes locked onto the alien's two violet discs set in pale skin stretched over a long skull. No more playing nice. The words were barely audible, but they carried. The Xaleth holding the weapon froze. The other three within earshot stopped moving. Kellan didn't know why they reacted like that. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the look in his eyes. Or maybe it was something else, something they'd seen before. Something about humans when they hit their limit. In the silence that followed, Kellan reached into his boot. The motion sent lightning through his ribs, but he gritted his teeth and pulled free a compact charge pack, one of the last he had left. The lead Xaleth finally spoke. He is bluffing. Kellan thumbed the activator. The charge pack ignited with a high-pitched whine, and Kellan flung it under the alien's feet. The blast lifted the Xaleth off the ground and tore its lower limbs apart in a rain of white-blue sparks and armor shards. He rolled, screaming as his ribs shifted, and dragged himself toward the bent rifle. Another Xaleth raised its weapon too slow. Kellan grabbed the rifle and slammed the cracked power cell against the ground, discharging the remaining energy in a wide arc. The second Xaleth jerked and collapsed with a smoking hole in its neck. The remaining two backed away, weapons still raised but now unsure. Hesitation. That was all he needed. Behind them, the rubble shifted. A large shape emerged, one of the older model combat drones, its plating scorched and one leg dragging. Kellan had activated its emergency protocol 3 days ago, but it had gone dark after the ambush, apparently not dead. Unit Delta 4, it intoned, scanning the battlefield. Grady. Confirmed. Combat status, critical. Protection protocol, initiated. The drone opened fire. Kellan ducked as tracer rounds lit up the air above him, and the remaining Xaleth scrambled for cover, one of them losing a leg in the process. He slumped against a broken support beam, breathing shallowly, and let the drone do the work. When the last of the aliens fled into the smoke, the drone turned back to him. Medical evacuation required, it said. Kellan laughed, then coughed, then stopped laughing because it hurt too much. No kidding. It took another hour before the drone flagged down a friendly evac crew, 2 medics and a pilot in a battered skimmer with half its plating missing. The medics moved fast once they saw him. Broken ribs, punctured lung, maybe worse, said the one with a shaved head. Let's get him stable. Kellan drifted in and out as they worked, the edges of his vision swimming. The pilot leaned in from the cockpit. He's the guy from Tharsis Ridge? Yeah, the medic muttered. You didn't hear. Took out a whole alien squad with a busted rifle and a half-dead drone, the pilot whistled. What's his name? Kellan Grady. The story spread faster than plasma fire through a dry hull. By the time Kellan woke up in the medbay 2 days later, he was already a rumor. The nurse on duty gave him a tight smile. You're awake. Don't try to sit up, you've got 4 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. We reinflated it, but it'll take time. Just breathe slow and try not to laugh. Wasn't planning on it, Kellan croaked. The door opened and a tall, wiry man in a commander's uniform stepped in. General Thorne. The man looked like he hadn't slept in a week. You really said that? Thorne asked. Said what? No more playing nice? Kellan blinked. I was dying. What do you expect me to say? Please don't, Thorne snorted and sat at the foot of the bed. You don't know what that phrase did. We intercepted alien comms. The Xaleth have been talking about it non-stop. They think it's a signal. Kellan frowned. A signal of what? That humans have been holding back. Kellan closed his eyes. That's not what I meant. I know, Thorne said, but they don't, and now they're scared. Good, Kellan whispered. A week passed before he could sit up on his own. Another 2 before he could walk more than a dozen steps without gasping. The doctors were firm about the recovery timeline, no fieldwork for at least 6 weeks, maybe longer. But the brass didn't want him in the field anyway. They wanted him in front of cameras. He refused all interviews. The only time he agreed to talk was when they brought in an alien linguist named Sarim, a defector from one of the Xaleth's allied species. Sarim wore a cloak that shimmered with refracted light and never blinked. I've studied human culture, Sarim said. You are unpredictable. But this phrase, no more playing nice, we believe it has deeper meaning. Kellan raised an eyebrow. It means we're done trying to be polite. Yes, Sarim said solemnly, and that now, you are dangerous. Kellan didn't respond. He didn't have to. By the time he was cleared for light duty, the phrase had become a rallying cry across the front. Soldiers tagged it on their armor. Tech crews etched it into drones. Even the alien resistance cells started using it. The Xaleth changed their tactics. Suddenly, they were more cautious, less direct. They started pulling back from human-heavy zones, rerouting their forces toward less volatile fronts. One day, during a recon op on the outskirts of the ruined city, Kellan stood with a fresh unit of recruits. Most had never seen real combat. Their eyes were wide, their hands twitchy. A low rumble echoed from the hill's Xaleth troop carriers. Kellan scanned the horizon, then turned to the squad. Get to cover, stay low, don't fire unless I say. One recruit hesitated. Sir. Are they gonna attack? Kellan took a breath, adjusted the sling on his new rifle and watched the carriers slow. Then stop. No, he said quietly. They're too scared. The recruit frowned. Of what? Kellan met his eyes, and for a moment, the pain from Tharsis Ridge came back, the heat, the blood, the sound of plasma burning through flesh. He didn't smile. Of what happens when we stop playing nice. The rain on Eldrin Prime wasn't rain in the Earth sense. It was more like a slow bleed from the clouds, thick, metallic droplets that hissed when they hit warm surfaces and left streaks on armor that no solvent could scrub out. Kellan stood under the extended wing of a grounded shuttle, watching it collect on the plexiglass canopy. It reminded him of oil slicks on concrete after a car leak, back when cars still ran on gasoline. He was upright now, walking without assistance, though his ribs still complained when he twisted too fast. The fatigue lingered, and he developed a permanent ache in his left side that no amount of rehab could shake. The doctors said it would fade eventually. He didn't believe them. Across the tarmac, a line of alien prisoners was being processed. They weren't Xaleth. These were from the Vyark Coalition, one of the Xaleth's more aloof allies, the ones who liked to pretend they were too elegant for war. Their armor looked ceremonial, like it had been designed by someone who'd never held a weapon. Kellan's attention drifted to one of the Vyark who had been separated from the others. It stood taller than the rest, with a braided set of sensory tendrils coiled around its throat like a scarf. Its wrists were bound with magnetic restraints, but it held its posture like a diplomat, not a captive. "Is that the envoy?" Kellan asked without looking away. The corporal beside him nodded, adjusting her soaked cap. "Refused to speak until someone from command authority came out. That's you, apparently." He exhaled slowly through his nose. "Lucky me." He approached the Vyark without ceremony. No introductions, no titles. The creature tilted its head slightly, eyeing him with pupils that dilated in slow, deliberate pulses. "You're the one who said the phrase," it said, its translator laced with faint distortion. Kellan didn't answer. The Vyark took that as permission to continue. "Our fleets intercepted your broadcasts. The declaration changed everything. Entire divisions were reassigned. Some of our own commanders began questioning the alliance. You came out all this way just to tell me that?" "I came to understand," the Vyark said. "Before the phrase, you were losing ground, then the shift. No reinforcements arrived, no new weapons appeared, yet your people advanced." "We didn't advance," Kellan said. "You retreated." The Vyark blinked once. "Because of the implications." Kellan stepped closer until he could hear the faint clicks of the alien's jaw mechanism. "You think humans have hidden reserves, secret arsenals. You're wrong. Then the fear is irrational." "No," Kellan said. "It's earned." The Vyark hesitated as if recalibrating. "You weaponized perception." Kellan watched a tech crew wheel a damaged drone into the hangar, its scorched plating still smoking. "You ever seen what a cornered animal does? We have no animals on our worlds." "Then you've already lost." The Vyark's jaw tightened. "We're not afraid of your weapons, we're afraid of your reactions." Kellan didn't correct him. Hours later, after the prisoners were moved and the shuttle was prepped for off-world extraction, Kellan sat in the makeshift command tent, nursing a cup of something that claimed to be coffee. It wasn't. It had the bitterness but none of the warmth. Still, he drank it. A young lieutenant ducked through the flap, holding a data slate. "We've got a situation at the forward trench line. Patrol picked up unusual movement, Xaleth, but they're not engaging." Kellan set the cup down. "Define unusual." "They're watching, not hiding, just standing there." 4 units across the ridge, no weapons drawn." He stood, joints stiff. "They want to talk." "That's the guess." He followed the lieutenant through the mud track that wound between collapsed barricades and half-buried artillery mounds. The trench line had been rebuilt 3 times in the past week, each rebuild wider and deeper than the last. The soldiers inside barely looked up as he passed. A few nodded. One saluted with a grease-smeared glove. At the ridge he saw them. 4 Xaleth, tall and motionless, standing in the open. Their armor glinted under the low light, wet with atmospheric oil. No movement, no cover, just waiting. Kellan climbed the slope slowly, hands empty, sidearm holstered. "You're out of your minds," he muttered under his breath. He stopped 10 meters from them. "You waiting on an invitation." One of the Xaleth stepped forward, its boots sinking slightly into the wet ground. Its helmet split open with a hiss, revealing a face like carved stone, eyes set deep in angular sockets. "We come to confirm intent," it said. "My intent, the intent of your kind." "You said the words." Kellan shifted his weight. "You want clarification." The Xaleth nodded once. "All right," Kellan said. "Here's your clarification. We're not playing anymore. No courtesy, no patience." "You wanted our worst. We figured we'd give it to you 1 inch at a time." The alien's nostrils flared, an involuntary gesture. "You will escalate. We already have." The Xaleth said nothing for a long time. "Then you were wounded." "You should not have survived. Guess it wasn't my day." Another Xaleth stepped forward, this one unhelmeted. Its skin bore a lattice of scars, symmetrical and deliberate status markings. "You are not enhanced, not bred for survival." Kellan nodded. "Nope." "Just stubborn." The scarred one spoke again. "Your species does not make sense. We're used to that." The aliens exchanged a look short, unreadable, then the leader spoke again. "We have been taught to anticipate logic, strategy, cost-benefit, but your kind," it paused. "You continue despite loss, despite math." Kellan folded his arms. "You ever try to explain grief to a calculator?" The leader turned away without another word. The others followed, vanishing into the mist beyond the ridge. He stayed at the top of the slope a while longer, not moving. His breath created faint clouds in the chilled air. He didn't believe they were done. But it was the first time they'd left without firing. Later that night, he sat in the mess tent, a tray of protein mash untouched in front of him. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, and most of the tables were empty. Only a few soldiers lingered, eating in silence, heads low. He tapped the side of his tray with a spoon. Across from him, Sergeant Lena Harrow glanced up from her own meal. "They think we're irrational," he said. "Well, they're not wrong. They're trying to find the pattern, how we work." "They won't," he looked at her. "Why not?" She chewed a moment before answering. "Because we don't even know." The lights flickered once. A tremor rolled through the floor, distant artillery likely, or a seismic echo from the mining fields. Kellan stood. "Get everyone ready, there's going to be a shift." She pushed her tray away. "Another offensive?" "No," he said. "They're going to offer terms." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure? They're not here to win anymore, they're here to survive our reaction." She shrugged, standing to follow. "Guess that's the difference." "What?" "They think survival's a strategy," she said. "For us, it's just a habit." And outside, the not rain continued to fall. By the time the ceasefire proposal arrived, Kellan had been transferred to a temporary field recovery base carved into the jagged cliffs outside the former city of Ireland's spine. The wind there carried fine grit that scraped against skin and settled into everything: lungs, eyes, bandages. He'd been moved not because he wanted to be, but because command insisted he be present for diplomatic optics. As if propping him up on a cot in a wind-blown outpost would help anyone sleep easier. The medtech assigned to him, a wiry woman named Dr. Imuri, checked his vitals every morning with the same dry efficiency she applied to folding gauze. She didn't talk unless necessary, and when she did, it was usually some iteration of "sit still or your lung will reinflate wrong." "Still hurts when I breathe in too deep," Kellan said, grimacing as he adjusted his posture. "That's because you're not a magician," Imuri muttered. "You tore intercostals, not paper. Your lucky breathing's an option at all." "I've been told I'm lucky in general." She glanced at the monitor. "Well, maybe not that lucky. You've got fluid buildup again." "I'll drain it before it causes another collapse." Kellan leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closed. "Can't wait." The door creaked open and a gust of dust-laced air swept in with a tall figure wearing a translation collar and a cloak that looked like it had been stitched from glass leaves. A Vyark, not one he recognized. Kellan didn't move. "Commander Grady," the alien said, its voice smooth but tinged with a cadence that almost sounded like sarcasm. Imuri tightened the straps on the portable drain unit, not looking up. "He's got about 10 minutes before I stick a tube in his side." "You've got 9, the Vyark ignored her. "You are the catalyst. I'm the guy with a hole in his lung. Let's not overstate things." We studied the footage. The gesture with the power cell was not standard protocol. I improvised. The Vyark crouched carefully, folding its legs under itself like a collapsing scaffold. "We have no equivalent for improvisation. You should try it. Keeps things interesting. We prefer outcomes that are predetermined." Kellan opened one eye. "That's probably why you keep losing." The Vyark's gaze sharpened, but it didn't rise to the bait. "Something about your unpredictability makes our tacticians uneasy." "Good. Uneasy enemies make mistakes." "That is not why I'm here. You've got 6 minutes, Imuri reminded without looking up. The Vyark lowered its voice. "Your people accepted the ceasefire, but there's doubt. The Xaleth believe you will violate it." Kellan scratched the back of his neck, fingers brushing the edge of an adhesive sensor. "We don't break deals. Yet you make threats you do not act on. That's not a threat. That's a warning. There is no functional difference. There is when we say it." The Vyark paused, processing. "You believe your behavior is distinct. I believe we don't have to explain ourselves to the ones who started this war." Imuri stood and peeled off her gloves. "All right, that's your time. You can sit in the hallway and philosophize all you want." He's got a liter of fluid in his chest and I don't want him drowning in it. The Vyark rose without resistance, brushing off its knees. Your kind survives not by superiority but by refusal. I'll take that as a compliment, Kellan said as Imri wheeled the tray closer. You should, the alien said and stepped out. Kellan groaned as Imri prepped the scalpel. You ever think about bedside manner? I did. Then I met you. The drainage procedure took 20 minutes. He gripped the edge of the cot as she inserted the catheter, biting down on a rubber bite block while a suction tube gurgled softly. When she was done, she handed him a warm compress and a cup of electrolyte solution. You'll breathe easier now, she said, stripping off her gloves, until next time. Let's not make this a habit. 3 days later, the Xaleth delegation arrived. They didn't enter the base through the front. Instead, they landed in silence on the far plateau and walked the kilometer in full armor, weapons holstered but visible. There were 8 of them. Kellan stood near the periphery of the landing pad, arms crossed, a thick pressure bandage under his shirt and a dull ache in his side that hadn't gone away despite the meds. A diplomat named Hargrove did the talking. She was a career professional, fluent in 6 alien dialects, and had a knack for making threats sound like invitations. Kellan wasn't there to speak. He was there to be seen living proof that the humans weren't bluffing. The Xaleth envoy, a towering figure with serrated facial ridges and a ceremonial blade at his hip, kept glancing at him during the negotiation. Kellan didn't return the look. He stared into the middle distance, watching clouds roll over the blackened peaks. After an hour, the envoy broke formation and approached him directly. You were injured, still am. Yet you continue to lead. I lead because others didn't make it. The alien tilted its head. You are not engineered for this. No. That's the point. There's no tactical advantage to pain. Pain reminds us we're still here. The envoy studied him. Your capacity for suffering is unsettling. That's what you get for invading the wrong planet. They stood in silence as the wind picked up, flinging grit against their boots. Then the Xaleth's blade hand twitched once, a gesture Kellan had seen only in archived footage. A salute of sorts, but used only for fallen enemies. You should not have survived, the envoy said. Kellan exhaled slowly. That's what everyone keeps saying. The envoy turned away and rejoined the circle. The diplomatic talks wrapped shortly after. Terms were agreed upon, territory lines drawn, both sides signed with biometric imprints. Kellan walked back to the medical tent alone. Inside, Imri was sterilizing instruments. You look like someone kicked you in the soul. Just shook hands with the species that tried to vaporize me last month. Did you wash after? He sank onto the edge of the cot. It's over. For now, no, he said. Really over. They're not coming back, she hesitated. How can you tell? Because they finally believe us. She packed away the tools and dimmed the lights. Good, maybe now we can fix what's left. He lay back, body sore, lungs working just a little easier than before. Outside, the grit storm had quieted. No alarms, no movement in the sky, just stillness. The war had ended not with a final battle or a signature on a treaty, but with a single realization. That humans didn't win by being stronger, faster, or smarter. They won because they refused to stop. And now, at last, the galaxy understood. He closed his eyes and let sleep pull him under, no longer afraid of what tomorrow might bring.